Hello and welcome to the show. I am back on BeamNG Drive with more of your automation cars. It has been a little while since I have run some vehicles around this course. We start today with the Spoon, and this comes from Retro8821, rear-wheel drive, turbocharged V6 powered machine here. The lightest car of the day at 834 kilos, just shy of 400 horsepower, 246 torque. So, rear-wheel drive vehicle seems pretty solid. Decent sized brakes, massive tyres, semi-slick tyre. Very, very massive semi-slick tyres around the place. Interesting exhaust configuration. It might stand a chance of going quicker. We're not quickest of all the two-wheel drive cars. That is going, I think, be a Pegasus is in the 120s. Is a mighty quick time. There's always going to be a tough one to beat. But this certainly is the sort of vehicle, statistically wise, that might potentially stand a little bit of a chance. Ooh, it's a interesting amount of wheel spin. Feels like the diff is very dodgy. I'm gonna be honest. That diff seems a little funky. Once we got going, it's all right. However, oh, that's a wall. It's like spinning one wheel. We got one tyre fires going on potentially. It's not the worst thing I've ever driven. In as far as nope, that's got over. Well, got to have a roll at some point along the way. It does very much feel like it's sort of doing one time. It's not oversteering, which is kind of good. It's at least planted while it's spinning. Well, you're wasting time because you're not putting power down to go forward, but it's not at least oversteering and wasting time wiggling around. It's better controlled until, well, that's not too bad there. Apparently I am super. I did actually do. You'll notice all the times all got reset. I did a couple of runs with my with the Kestrel again, just to re-familiarise myself with the circuit. This thing, whoa! Immediately, maybe the bent wheels played some part in that. This thing drives interestingly. I'm gonna go with interestingly, as it is quite the. It's quite the handful in as much as it's just that little something will upset it, and that gets a little scary. We're horrendously broken and crashed a number of times, and still not the slowest car around there. It's like you're expecting, you think you figured out what it's going to do, and then all of a sudden it's just not quite where you think it's going to be in terms of grip and whatnot. Now, we can't afford to clip. When you've got as bigger tyres as this, you clip that any of the concrete and you're going to be in a lot of trouble. The wheel spin kind of a little scary. I'm going to be say this again, it's not the worst, it's just I'm not 100% confident in what the car is going to do. If we get it right, I think this stands a pretty good chance of going quickly. Gearbox wise, I think second gear is probably where I'm going to want to be out of most of these corners. There we go, that's a bit better so far. Through the start of this lap, little wide on the way through there. We'll recover that one. Yeah, I got to use second. Unfortunately, we might be a tad out of the power band, but if we're going down to first, it's not really got the revs to play with. So again, nowhere near the worst gearbox I've ever driven with. However, it's just sitting slightly in an unhelpful line. All right, here we go. Onto the back straight. What do we got? Straight line speed-wise from the car, 83, 84 miles an hour. Pretty good. Not the quickest we've ever seen, but certainly not too bad. No rolling this time around. Oh, just got that little bit of wheel spin when I didn't want it. However, not collected any of the big metal archways. And around the final corner we go. Run to the line. 24.3. Not bad for a rear-wheel drive car. Not bad for a rear-wheel drive car so far. Might be a little bit more speed. I hope. Always hopeful for a little bit more speed out of the cars. A little bit better driving, perhaps, by me. Yeah, it's a good car overall. It is just a little bit strange on the power delivery. It's very weird having kind of spinning the wheels, but not wiggling around. It's not. If you have a front-wheel drive car, you spin the wheels, you tend to get lots of understeer. Rear-wheel drive car, spinning the wheels, you tend to get lots of oversteer. And this kind of just spins the wheels and is a little bit. It's slightly peculiar, not bad, it just takes a little bit of getting used to, as, you know, what on earth is the car going to do when you go to launch out of a corner. So yeah, I'm trying to be a touch careful with the old putting power down. There's quite a lot of understeer through there. I tried to get on the power a little too soon, but we can get away with it. You can kind of you take a longer route, but you might be able to carry a little bit more speed. Overall, kind of evens itself out, I think, in terms of time. Not a great one onto the back straight. Again, you can go wider out there, but that was a better run down here. We got about 85 miles an hour. Just touched the concrete, got away with it. Oh, there's the first actual bit of oversteer from the car. Not really what I was wanting from it, but we are slowed down just. Weave through here. It's a little wide through the first part. Bit of a shame. Run to the line. It's not a bad run. It's a strange car to describe to you. It's not a bad driving car as such. It's just a little bit peculiar in its behaviour. 24 for a rear-wheel drive is not too shabby at all. Yeah, it's not quite going to be the fastest of the rear-wheel drive cars. However, yeah, certainly not a bad time. The next vehicle to tackle the course today does look a little bit sad. This is the DH Hypertrack. Comes from that boy all-wheel drive V16 powered machine. Kind of surprised to see the V16 fit in the car, but it does. 287 horsepower, 281 torque. It is a fraction heavier than the Spoon. It is at 984 kilos, still under 1,000. But you know, power to weight ratio not too bad. All-wheel drive, good for traction. Tyres massive. Little bit scared we might see the wheels wobbling around. This sort of car with tyres that this wide, wheel wobble is a potential concern. Gear ratio is very short. I can find a gear ratio, or I can find a gear that works potentially out of these corners. I think it's going to have to be third for most of this. Yeah, that'll get going. Brakes, very, very powerful. Not having problems with lockups though, which is nice to see. I say that, and just as we turned in a little bit, that was more my driving than the brakes. The engine, it sounds like it's doing an awful lot, with not so much in the way of... Oh, I'm actually almost completely came to a halt there. It sounds like it's doing a lot, but not as much movement as I would expect. It's not amazingly... Well, it doesn't feel amazingly fast on the acceleration front. We have had cars that don't feel quick, but actually are. Sometimes it's difficult to judge. It feels like it's struggling out of these corners. Let's see what we do down this back straight. Maybe the power's a little lower down. 76 miles an hour, certainly not the slowest that we have seen. It feels like it's struggling a little bit to get going. It's not, you know, nowhere near the most powerful vehicle that we have seen, although around the 300 horsepower mark can be very, very quick. This is a 20.6, not a bad first run. Not a bad first run at all from the vehicle. But it definitely feels like there is just that little bit of, well, I say struggling, yeah, it just feels a little bit slow out of the corners. I'd say a fair bit of understeer. Again, I would prefer that to it being leery and sideways. It might not quite, like here for example, we're not able, even at the slower speeds where I'm off power, we're not able to get it turned in quite as sharp as we have done with some of the faster vehicles. It's not bad at all, you know, don't get me wrong, but you're losing little bits of time there, and then it really doesn't quite accelerate. It's good through there. I mean, 40 miles an hour is pretty damn solid through that particular corner. Again, not the very fastest that we have seen. Sub 20 might well be doable with this car if I can get everything right. Oh, there's almost a little bit of... I just saw the beginnings of an oversteer moment, and it very immediately found grip. This has got such massive tyres. I'm surprised to see there's no wheel wobble at all from the car. It really has got some massive, massive tyres. Better run down the back straight this time, up to 80 miles an hour. Kind of about 82, I think, sort of a rough average kind of speed we've seen. 100 miles an hour is possible down there. We have had a couple of cars make it and still be able to slow down for the corner, although they were very difficult to control elsewhere around the lap. It is a quicker time, a 19.7 for the Hypertrack. So we've gone sub 20. Yeah, still a pretty So it's pretty good. Well, it's not up there with the 16s that are the fastest cars to ever run around here. Sub 20 is still not an easy thing to do at this particular circuit. It's a seriously demanding location here. You've got to be able to deal with the very technical corners, lots of these short acceleration zones, decent brakes. It's working on the most part for this. The brakes must be massive. We're not really getting any temperature into them at the moment, but we aren't suffering from lockups that we have seen from some cars with kind of cold brakes, sort of snatchy cold brakes. We don't have to deal with that, which is nice, or we don't have the ABS getting confused when we're doing the big stops, so that's all. Yeah, it's a solid all-round car, little understeery and perhaps a little bit lacking in the acceleration front. I'm trying to be brave. This will fall over unbelievably easy if I touch a bit of concrete. The tyre's as big as this, it is going to go over. It's going to go over so easily if I touch the concrete on the inside. I want to, you want to be brave. You want to try and run it as close to the walls as you can. But when you've only got 3 runs, and this is the final of those 3 runs, you really can't afford it. I think I've pushed it a little too hard through some of these turns. We are around the final corner. Fraction quick. The wheel pings off quite nicely at the front there. fraction quicker. 19.4 for the car. Yeah, all things considered, it feels struggling out of the corners, and it is a bit understeer, or can't turn in as nicely to some of these technical parts. Sub 20, pretty good going. And our third vehicle to run today is the BMCA Invicta, kind of a classic styled sports car. This, built by Silverman Blue, has got some modern bits. It's got semi-slick tyres, massive brakes. The engine, a flat 4, 260 horsepower, 256 torque. It's all-wheel drive. It is, again, we're getting a little bit heavier. This is just over 1,000 kilos. Now, I know that might not sound much compared to real cars in this series. Well, 1,000 kilos, this is 200 or 300 kilos heavier than some of the fastest cars that have gone, and power-wise is okay. It's a little bit down in power-to-weight ratio, a little bit heavier. Again, if we've got good grip, a sub 120 might be doable. If we've got good handling to go with the power, we might be able to get sub 120. Might struggle to do much more than that. I would guess, judging by these first corners, we're probably going to be looking at a 120, 121 potentially, although, are we going to be in a wonky place in the gear ratios? We are, aren't we? I don't know if second's going to work out of there. Really don't want that to be in first through here. Oh, it just about finds its go as we come out of the corner. Interesting looking vehicle. Also, I think the black paint on the cars that have been exported often ends up a little bit funny, and you end up with this incredibly blacked out car. It's not quite supposed to look like that, but it's come on, get turned in a little bit better than that. I mean, the engine feels fairly responsive if you've got the turbos in the right place. It doesn't quite have the front end grip that you would like. What were we doing straight line speed? Yeah, it's not as fast, or that maybe was a little wonky. We can maybe get a little bit more speed. Looks like it's probably going to be a fairly similar straight line speed to our previous car. And in a weird way, this feels driving it faster accelerating, despite being probably fairly similar. I don't think we've got quite the same handling. No, that's not a good first ride. There were a couple of mistakes. It can definitely go better than a 24. Definitely a little bit more speed in the car than that 24. Yeah, the whole trying to judge on how fast a car is going at times is quite difficult. Shall we leave it in second? Below about 4,000 RPM, we do not have much go in this at all. Below, it's a little, yeah. So sort of, you've got to be above 4,000 RPM, which is fine. However, first gear, you buzz the limiter coming out of these corners. Second gear, nothing. Then we go there. That's gonna. We have had so we've had less turbo lagging issues than I thought we might around here, in all honesty. There have been a fair few cars that have had small issues, but we haven't had horrendous lag issues. No one's been too bonkers with their choice of car, choice of engine, etc. yeah, this is a little bit awkward in terms of your gear ratios. You've just kind of got to live with it and just accept it's going to struggle out of some of these slower corners. Make the most of the acceleration where we can. We do at least crack 80 miles an hour down there. Brakes aren't too bad. Well, they're not locking up, they're working. We haven't got tiny brakes, they're overheating, so I'll take that. It's a little bit of tyre squeal, nothing uncontrollable as we weave our way around this final corner. What is it going to be? 23.4. Nice spin. Very nice spin from that. My 2021 is a couple of seconds out at the moment. Maybe find a bit more time. But I'm not sure there's too much. Unfortunately, it's not sure there's too much there for the car. A slight better gear ratio. Fair, we've had more cars with gearbox sort of gearing issues than we have with kind of big turbo lagging issues. It's a tough thing with this when these cars were designed. The course had been shown when the cars were designed, but the seed not, so you couldn't necessarily build the cars. You could build them for a rough idea of autocrossing stuff, but it was only ever going to be a rough idea, and sure, you want short gear ratios when you're doing an autocross, when there's a lot of this short, sharp acceleration zones, but the exact gearing is always a tricky thing to get right, and this is just... come on, stop! So understeer a little bit, we'll find some go, and we find go at just the wrong point, and it's all conspiring a little bit. Again, this is still not a slow car. This is still not a slow car. 23 is not a bad time around this circuit. Except we've had cars, well, we've had a couple silly entrants over 2 minutes around here, but yeah, 23s maybe sneak a 22 if I do this run. Get this run right and push that so hard under braking. We almost had the back end step out on it. It's nice enough to drive, just not quite so suited to this course. It actually felt like a good run. Did not end so well. Ew, that's done a funky thing to the front of it. It was a good-looking car until I crashed it. Interesting vehicle to drive. Perhaps a little underpowered, or a little underpowered power to weight ratioed. That's a correct terminology. Maybe not quite the ultimate grip through the corner. Still not a bad vehicle to drive. Just not quite up there with the fastest. Our final vehicle to run today is the MMCA. This built by Call of Gran Turismo. All-wheel drive V6 powered machine. It is the heaviest car of the day at 1,200 kilos. It's also on road tyres, whether they're softer compound tyres or the long life. I can't tell, but it's not semi-slicks basically. We're going to struggle with the grip a little bit. It is all-wheel drive, 300 horsepower, 232 torque, and it's the least torque of the day. We're not going to, ultimately on road tyres, you're not going to be challenging the top spots. You're simply never going to be able to get around the corners well enough. Feels like it might have a manual gearbox. I say it feels like, I'm pretty sure that's a manual gearbox, judging by the delay between shifts. Yep, okay, so we're going to have that little bit of time lost. Downshifts, it's not too bad, because mostly you'll be slowing down anyway, but it's the upshifts. We have seen some cars really struggle. Some more than others. Depends on how terribly short the gear ratios are. If we need to do a lot of gear changing, then it's going to cost you more and more time. If you only ever really need to use 2 gears, you can kind of get away with it. Can we get away with second through there? Possibly. I have to say, for a car on road tyres, handling-wise, is actually not too shabby. Could be a lot worse. I do feel like this might fall over if I hit a concrete, even without the big semi-slick tyres. It feels very thin and very tall, and I mean it's tripoding around these corners almost. So a hit of the concrete barrier, and we probably end up with a car upside down. Ooh, that was a little brave under brakes. We do struggle with straight lines. It's not even the gearbox as such that we're struggling with. We don't have to do lots of changes. That power to weight ratio is not going to help matters in the acceleration department, because it was over 70 miles an hour, which is not the worst, but 26.6 is for a car running normal road tyres, a 26.6 is actually pretty damn good. We've had cars sort of statistically that have, on paper should have been faster, that have actually been a fair bit worse to drive than this. So that is not too shabby at all. And we'll see if we can find any more time. No, I don't think first gear is really... It's one of those, again, you can go in first, but you'll be stuck changing gear constantly. You'll be buzzing the limiter. We'll give it a try this time around. Nah. So I'll give it a try. Then immediately, the first corner I come out of, I'm not... Yeah, you're almost immediately having to shift up. It's a bit of a bugger to have to deal with that. I mean, I actually overdrove the next corner, so... Let's try and be neater for the final run. Let's not go through all of that. I'm impressed with the grip. That held almost about 40 the entire way around there. Again, we've seen some cars do faster than that, sure, but we haven't seen too many cars on the old normal road-going tyres. We're going to get some all-wheel drifting a little bit there. Not quite positioned it, but good enough. No real time lost with a little slide like that. Maybe more time lost if I do that through there. It's fun little car to drive, actually. It's a more sensible body style. The engine's still fairly mad for, if you're going for a normal road car. The engine's still a little bit on the bonkers. I say a little bit on the bonkers side, actually. I guess a little 2-litre V6 like this. No, actually 300 horsepower. Yeah, it's a little bit on the mad side. You could almost see it being a normal road car, like a top-of-the-line tech showcase of a road car for some manufacturer. 25.7 for the car. Right, one more run for the vehicle. I don't know if I can get any more out of it. Again, as I said earlier with the previous cars, I'd always like to be able to get more speed, always like to get a better run out of the vehicles. We are going to go for second gear, I think. It's just because first you are literally just sat there buzzing the limiter and going to be changing almost immediately. Yeah, it's an awkward one. It's actually about one of the more awkward cars I've actually driven with this, because it is so close to wanting first and struggling a little bit with the turbo out the other side. I still think the control you get with second is the better option, although I might regret that in the end. That's a little wide through there. Please stop understeering. I am very impressed. I was fully expecting this to not be the greatest car to drive when you look at the stats and so on. For its weight and for its tyres, it's actually pretty good around here. It's actually pretty good. You can see there's a fair bit of kind of weight trail. You can see the back end bobbing around as we're going through some of these technical sections. It doesn't really bother the car. It's still got the grip to get away with it. Kind of just a teensy bit of oversteer when you're flicking it through the technical parts, but nothing you can't manage. Teensy bit of oversteer there as you put the power down. One more big braking zone to go, and it's nicely stopped for the hairpin. Now, keep it neat for the run to the line. We go, come on, find some acceleration. I think it's actually almost near identical time to the last one. 25.7, it was, oh wow, we were within. That's some consistency for you right there. That is some consistency for you right there. Oh, it has ended up upside down after the fact. For a little bit heavy, perhaps. I say underpowered. 300 horsepower is not too bad. I'm just a little bit under torque for some of the cars that we have seen on normal road tyres. That is actually pretty damn good going. That is actually very, very good to drive. So we've had some interesting cars. We've had some interesting cars to come back to. On to the results table, and it would be the DH Hyper that would go fastest of the day into a 27th place with that 19.4. It is, well, I mean, 7/10 of a second to cover the 10 cars on screen. At the moment, it's a quick vehicle. It's a quick vehicle. It feels a bit weird. It feels weird to drive, but still, yeah. Getting a sub 20 is good around here. We have to go a little bit further down to find the Invicta. That'll go into an 85th place with a 23.4. We also have our first ever tie in this series. We're 150 odd cars driven, and we've only had one dead heat. There's actually also 3 cars now separated by 0.003 of a second. The Spoon will go into a 94th place, an identical time to the Urban, and just 3,000th slower than the Razor. It's getting very, very busy. The table is getting very busy indeed in some of these sections. No, not bad cars. Rear-wheel drive car 24.3 is not too shabby whatsoever. It's a bit of an interesting diff, I think, going on in that. And finally, we have got our kind of more normal road-tired car. The Cirrus will go into 105th place. However, while okay, there's a fair way down on the leaderboard, the likes of the GT4, for example, that was also all-wheel drive on normal road tyres. I think a 25.7 for road tyres is actually, yeah, not that bad at all. I wasn't expecting great things from that car, you know, based on the stats, but actually turned out to be really rather good. That, though, is going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, a goodbye.